Hey, it's Sam from Sugar Spun Run, and today we are making apple pie cookies. Adding another cookie to my gourmet cookie collection today. These apple pie cookies are so much fun. They have all of the flavors of apple pie, and I'm also going to be showing you how to make that super cute ice cream or fake ice cream topping. Get your oven preheating to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and let's talk about those apples, which are arguably the most important part of today's recipe. I personally love using Granny Smith apples for today's recipe, but really you can use whatever you have on hand. I do prefer to use a more firm and tart apple, which is why Granny Smith are great. We're going to be adding plenty of sweetness elsewhere in the cookie, so something a little more tart works a little better. You'll want to peel your apples, core them, and then we're going to dice them really small. I do want to make sure I have really small pieces, as you can see here, just because it makes it a lot easier to eat the cookie. If the pieces are too large, it can kind of make for an awkward eating experience. For an authentic apple pie flavor, we are going to pre-cook the apples and make our own super simple from scratch apple pie filling. You'll need a medium-sized pan, and on your stovetop, we'll combine our apples. I don't think I said an amount yet. This is 3 cups of these finely chopped apples, and it usually takes me about 3 or 4 apples to get that much, but of course your mileage may vary depending on the size of your specific apples. We're also going to add 1/4 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar, 2 tablespoons of butter, salted or unsalted will work fine here. Just use whatever you have on hand. 2 teaspoons of cornstarch, and 1 teaspoon of ground cinnamon. Now we'll turn our stovetop to medium-low heat, and we are just going to cook this until the butter is nice and melted and all of the ingredients are nicely combined. Now once my butter is melted, I like to turn my stovetop heat just up a notch to medium, and then I'm going to cook this, stirring frequently until it comes to a simmer, and I'm going to simmer it, still stirring frequently, until the apples are nice and tender. If you're not sure that your apples are soft enough, just take a fork and see if you can easily pierce them with a fork. You'll notice the sugar will melt, the apples will release a lot of their juices, so this mixture will get more liquidy, a lot more liquidy than it starts out. And that's why I use some cornstarch here, because I want that liquid from the apples. I want all of this flavor, but the cornstarch helps to tighten that sauce a little bit so that when we add it to our cookie, we're not going to end up with a soggy cookie. The apples are chopped nice and small, so usually within 5 minutes, they're nice and soft. Just like to keep everything moving while I'm cooking it, because I don't want those apples to burn to the bottom of the pan. All right, let's check these apples. Nice and tender when pierced with a fork. So I'm going to turn off the stovetop. We'll remove these from heat, and I am going to place them into a heat-proof bowl. I'm taking them out of the skillet because I want them to cool down fast, because the other parts of this cookie are going to come together pretty quickly, and I want the filling to be ready to be used. And you can't use the filling until it has cooled, so by putting it in a separate bowl, just going to help it cool down faster. I'm actually also going to pop this in the fridge to speed up the process even more. Now let's make our cookie dough. So for today's recipe, we're going to be starting with 1 cup of softened unsalted butter. We'll drop that right into a large mixing bowl. For the base for these cookies, I had contemplated possibly using an actual pie crust, but after a lot of research and a lot of testing, I decided instead I wanted this to feel like a cookie pie hybrid. So we are using a soft, buttery cookie base, has a really good flavor that accents the filling really nicely. We'll be adding 1 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar and a 1/2 cup of granulated sugar. Today's recipe could absolutely be made in the stand mixer, but today I'm just going to be using my electric hand mixer. And we'll cream together these ingredients until they are light and fluffy. Next, we'll be adding 2 large eggs. Here's 1. And 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And of course, we'll stir these into the dough. I always like to use my spatula to scrape the sides and bottom of the bowl, just to make sure everything is getting well incorporated. You should have a nice uniform, it's more like a batter than a dough at this point. All right, now for our dry ingredients. You are going to start with 4 cups of all-purpose flour. We will add 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. Here, the cornstarch is going to both help make the cookie nice and soft and help keep it from spreading too much. We'll also add 2 teaspoons of baking powder, just 1/4 teaspoon of baking soda, And for our salt, we'll be adding 1 teaspoon of salt today. This is just regular table salt. Whisk everything together. You want to make sure your leavening agents and cornstarch are well incorporated into that flour. Otherwise, we're not going to get a nice uniform dough. Now bring back your wet ingredients. We're going to gradually add the dry ingredients to the wet. I usually do this in like 3 or 4 parts. You don't want to add it all at once. That could just make it really hard to get the ingredients easily combined, and you'll probably end up with flour all over your kitchen. I always start my mixer on low speed. Add a bit more. Add the rest in there. All right, grab our spatula again, do one final scrape. Want to make sure everything is nice and uniform, no flour pockets hiding in the bottom. And this is a pretty stiff dough. However, I do like to pop it in the fridge for at least a couple minutes. I'll do this while I prepare our streusel topping, if I can get the plastic wrap to cooperate with me. All right, part 3 of our cookies today is the crumb topping. I know some of you out there are probably fine with an apple pie with a plain pie crust lattice top topping. That's fine, but I am a crumb topping girl, so these are crumb topped apple pie cookies. This comes together very easily. We start with 6 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter. I always melt the butter first because it's a little warm when it comes out of the oven, and we don't want it to be too warm. We want it to cool down, so I set it aside, give it some time to cool off. We all need a little time to cool off sometimes. Next, in a medium-sized mixing bowl, we're going to combine 1 1/4 cups of all-purpose flour with a 1/2 cup of firmly packed light brown sugar and a 1/3 cup of granulated sugar. Oops, almost left some flour behind. We'll also need 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Again, just table salt. Now we'll just stir everything together until this is nicely combined. And then we'll check on our butter and make sure it's cooled down enough to use. And we want it to be cooled because if it's too hot, it'll actually melt the sugars in here and it's going to give us a sort of greasy crumb topping. We want this to be dry and manageable and crumbly. All right, make sure that's nice and cooled. It is. Add that right into our flour mixture. And of course, we are going to scrape the bowl because we do not waste butter around here. Now we'll just toss this together because it's basically just like a streusel, like if you were making my streusel. I like to use a fork, just claw everything together. You don't want to really mix it or you'll end up with a paste. So just sort of toss the ingredients together until all of that flour is moistened. It should come together pretty quickly for you. And it should be a pretty crumbly mixture. I'll show you what it looks like. Oh my gosh, I almost forgot an important ingredient in our crumb. The cinnamon. You need a 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, and we are going to try to add this in and hope it's not too late. Whew, that was close. I added it just in time. I'm a professional, guys. All right, this is looking pretty good. By this time, your apple mixture should be cooled, your oven should be preheated, so let's move on to assembling these cookies. Let's start with our cookie dough. You're going to need about 2 tablespoons of cookie dough per cookie. This is my new favorite, 1 1/2 tablespoon size scoop. I just do a heaping scoop of that. And then I'll just roll this into a ball. Want a nice smooth ball. Place it on my baking sheet. You'll want to make sure you space your cookies at least 2 inches apart. And then I'm going to make an indent, which is going to hold the filling. I'll usually just use the scoop to make the indent. And then if it's not quite deep enough, I'll just use my finger. Now, one thing to watch out for, do not make too much of an indent, because if you do, you're going to make the bottom of the cookie really thin. And then since the filling does have some moisture to it, what's going to happen is after a day, the cookies are just going to get too soft and that bottom won't be strong enough and it'll just give. So make sure you still have a decent layer of cookie dough there. Now for the filling, I'm going to do about a tablespoon of filling, or I should say a tablespoon. I do a level tablespoon. Using my tablespoon scoop, I'm just going to drop that right in the center. And then I'm also going to do a tablespoon of my streusel filling on top. About a tablespoon. Sometimes I end up with a little more than that because I really like crumble. And I'm going to place this on top. Look how cute that is. And then obviously I'll repeat with the rest of the dough. You should get about 2 dozen cookies out of this recipe. Doesn't need to be a very deep crater. We're mostly just sort of flattening the dough and making a space for the filling. And the cookies will spread some, so the crumb will spread some with it. So I do like to try and make sure all of the apple is covered with at least a little bit of it. And then I'll usually clean up the excess just because otherwise it's just wasted crumb. It's like a little crumb hat on each cookie. All right, we'll take these over to our preheated oven where they're going to need to bake for about 13 minutes. You want to look for the edges of the cookies to be beginning to turn a golden brown color. All right, I like to let these cookies cool on the baking sheet before I remove them, and then we're going to make sure they have cooled completely before we decorate them. While they're cooling, we can go ahead and prepare our faux vanilla bean ice cream that I was telling you about earlier. These cookies can and have been enjoyed without any frilly decorations on top. They're delicious, they're great, and they stand alone as they are. However, I feel like apple pie needs ice cream. So I'm going to show you how I make this very simple but so cute vanilla ice cream for my cookies. Now you're going to need 1 stick of softened unsalted butter. Drop this in a mixing bowl. I also like to add just a pinch of salt. Now if you're using salted butter, you can skip this of course. This is about an 1/8 teaspoon I'd say. And now we're going to start gradually adding powdered sugar until we have a super thick, super stiff buttercream mixture. I don't know why I put buttercream in quotes. It is actually buttercream. It's not actually ice cream. All right, let's just add a little bit to start. Now I have 3 cups here. That's what I typically need, but you may find that you need more or less just depending on so many factors like the temperature of your butter or your kitchen. Make sure you're mixing the sides and bottom of the bowl as that powdered sugar likes to hide there, and you want this to be a nice and cohesive mixture. You don't want it to be super crumbly. We're gonna add in a little bit more. It's starting to get really, really thick, which tells me I can probably check it in a minute and see if we've added enough sugar. Oh, and you might notice, if you look at this right now, it looks pretty dry and crumbly, but if I keep mixing it, it is going to come together. So don't get discouraged, just keep mixing. And don't try to do this by hand. All right, now vanilla ice cream needs some vanilla flavor. You could use vanilla extract, that would be fine, but because I want to give this those nice vanilla bean specks and really sell it as a vanilla bean ice cream, I'm going to be using a vanilla bean paste. I'm going to add 2 teaspoons. And after I add this, I may find I actually need to add a little bit more sugar, which I still have some in my bowl right there. Grab my spatula because we do not waste vanilla bean paste either because this stuff's expensive. But it's so pretty. Let's stir this in. And I am gonna add that last bit of my powdered sugar. All right, let's take a look. I think it looks like vanilla bean ice cream. This consistency looks great, super thick. And I'll show you the test that I do to make sure it's done. What you want to do is make sure that it will hold its scoop appearance. So I have a little 2 teaspoon size scoop. Any cookie scoop that you'd like to use will work, but 2 teaspoons will give you the right amount of scoops for your cookies. And then I will just drop this in my hand and make sure it holds its shape. Doesn't it look like a cute little scoop of vanilla bean ice cream? Now we're not ready for this just yet. Really quickly, we are going to whip up a vanilla bean glaze. You'll need 1 cup of powdered sugar. We are going to add, I have a teaspoon of milk. I'm going to add most of that. I might not need all of it. And I'm sorry, that is a tablespoon of milk that I have measured out, but I've only added about 2 teaspoons so far. And I'm also going to add a ½ teaspoon of that vanilla bean paste because I want it to match the ice cream that I just made. Now we'll just whisk this together and we'll add more milk if and as needed. Looks like we need a little bit more here. It looks like I'm going to need a little bit more milk because this is definitely too stiff. So the consistency you're looking for with your glaze, when you pull your whisk out of the mixture, the ribbon that falls down should hold its shape for a couple seconds before dissolving back into the mixture. That's how you know it's done. All right, cookie assembly time. We have all our components, our cookies have cooled. I like to start by scooping my ice cream. And I'm not going to put it on just yet, because this glaze does two things. One, it's going to make it look like the ice cream is melting on the cookie, make it seem a little bit more authentic, but more importantly, it's going to act as the glue to hold that ice cream on the cookie and keep it from sliding off. So I want to put this little dollop right there. So I'm going to add my glaze underneath. And you can do any kind of design you want. You can make it look like it's just melting in one spot. You can drizzle that glaze all the way over the cookie, whatever you prefer. I like it over the cookie because it does add a nice little extra dimension of flavor to the finished product. Okay, so we're looking messy now, but just wait. Take your ice cream. I love that. I hope you guys enjoy this as much as I am. Let's do a couple more. And the ice cream scoop. One right there. And I've been offsetting the scoops, but you could absolutely do it right in the center instead. Let's do one like that. And if for any reason your ice cream is not scooping as easily as mine is here, just add more powdered sugar. That will solve all of your problems. Is this step necessary? No, not at all. Is it so cute? I really think so. I'll do a little more glaze here. A little bit more right here too. And since this is a pretty stiff glaze, it's going to harden pretty quickly for you too, so you don't have to wait too long to enjoy them. Look how cute that is! Is that not the cutest apple pie cookie? I'm really proud of this one. It was a lot of fun to make, and I really hope you enjoy it as much as I have. If you tried this one, please leave me a comment. Let me know what you think. I always love hearing from you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time.